behind the worst layup attempt in Angel Reese's history. Of the thousands that we have to choose from, they are deeming this the worst bloopy of all time. Wow. Let's take a look. Off the backboard, pass to herself. Angel Reese is one step ahead. And then she makes a layup. Thank goodness.
This is the absolute turning point of the entire WNBA season. A moment so deeply disturbing and visually shocking that it has sent unadulterated shockwaves through the entire global basketball community. Imagine walking up to the official Indiana Fever practice facility, expecting to witness the relentless, surgical work ethic of the generation's biggest superstar. Instead, you find the arena doors barred shut and security guards stationed outside. Inside those heavy double doors, a scene of raw emotional chaos was unfolding that nobody was ever meant to see. Caitlin Clark, the undisputed face of modern women's basketball, was literally forced out of her own team's practice session. She was left visibly shaken, holding back tears of pure humiliation and clutching her gear in complete disbelief. This was not a routine rest day. It was not a tactical coaching decision. This was an aggressive, orchestrated removal that has left teammates stunned, management in total panic mode, and millions of passionate fans worldwide boiling with unbridled rage. The atmosphere inside that facility shattered in an instant, turning standard championship preparation into an agonizing crime scene of psychological warfare, jealousy, and deep executive betrayal. Right now, the entire sports world is demanding immediate answers to one terrifying question. What dark secret forced the league's golden prodigy out into the cold? To truly understand the terrifying severity of this high-stakes nightmare, you have to rewind to the moment Caitlin Clark first stepped foot inside the Indiana Fever organization. She didn't just enter the league, she completely reinvented it, bringing unprecedented sellout crowds, billion-dollar television deals, and a level of intense, frantic global scrutiny that women's basketball had never experienced in its entire history. But behind the dazzling, record-breaking logo three-pointers and the bright, flashing arena lights, a dark, toxic envy was silently metastasizing deep within the locker room walls. From day one, seasoned veterans and long-standing league figures felt eclipsed, marginalized, and completely erased by the overwhelming, almost suffocating narrative surrounding the young phenom. Every single shoe deal, every multi-million-dollar endorsement, and every glowing national headline painted an invisible, burning target directly on Clark's back, turning routine practices into high-pressure war zones filled with bitter resentment. Teammates who had spent years bleeding for the franchise suddenly found themselves treated like secondary background extra actors in the viral Caitlin Clark show, and the psychological toll was becoming utterly unbearable. Inside the facility, simple drill repetitions degenerated into passive-aggressive Cold Wars, sharp side-eye glances, and heavy, icy silences during critical team huddles. Front office executives, blinded by astronomical profit margins and desperate to protect their fragile new cash cow, repeatedly swept glaring locker room altercations under the rug, ignoring the boiling kettle right up until the steam exploded. Clark herself was operating under an inhumane amount of pressure, carrying the literal weight of an entire league's financial future on her youthful shoulders while silently suffering through toxic internal politics. She was routinely forced to play the humble, soft-spoken poster child in front of international media cameras, while behind closed doors, she was systematically isolated from the core heart of her own team. The emotional history between Clark, her veteran co-stars like Kelsey Mitchell, and a desperately panicked coaching staff was a ticking time bomb just waiting for a single spark. League insiders privately warned that the intense, unchecked power dynamics, combined with furious veteran ego clashes, were rapidly spiraling out of control, threatening to rip the franchise apart from the inside out. Yet, nobody could have ever predicted that this brewing emotional poison would overflow so violently during a standard, closed-door Tuesday morning practice session. The foundation of the entire franchise was built on a deeply fractured lie, and as the emotional damage mounted day after day, the inevitable breaking point was drawing dangerously close. When you build an empire on hidden resentment and unaddressed jealousy, it doesn't take much to burn the whole house down to the ground. And on this catastrophic morning, the flames of locker room hatred finally caught fire, setting off an explosive chain reaction that would forever shatter Caitlin Clark's relationship with the Indiana Fever, leaving the entire basketball universe gasping for air. The catastrophic explosion erupted halfway through an unusually intense full-court scrimmage, when routine physical play suddenly crossed a dangerous line into full-blown physical aggression. It started with a brutal, aggressive screen set near half-court, followed by a series of sharp, intentionally heavy elbow jabs aimed directly at Clark's upper chest during a standard transition play. Instead of blowing the whistle to restore order, the coaching staff stood in stunned, frozen silence, allowing the hyper-intense, illegal physicality to escalate into a completely chaotic, terrifying mob situation. When Clark passionately confronted her head coach about the blatant lack of safety calls, demanding basic protection on her own home court, the entire gym temperature plummeted below absolute zero. That was the exact moment the nightmare took a sharp, unbelievable turn that left everyone in the arena paralyzed with complete horror and utter shock. Instead of disciplining the veteran players who initiated the physical assault, the head coach stepped directly into Clark's personal space, pointed aggressively toward the exit doors, and screamed for her to immediately leave the hardwood floor. The entire practice facility fell into a suffocating, dead silence as security guards quickly surrounded the league's biggest superstar, escorting her out like a common criminal. Clark stood in absolute disbelief, tears of pure fury and deep humiliation welling up in her eyes as her own coaching staff stripped away her dignity in front of every single teammate. The immediate message sent across the room was crystal clear and brutally ruthless. No matter how many millions of dollars you generate for this franchise, you will never be bigger than the toxic hierarchy ruling this locker room. Teammates like Aaliyah Boston watched in total horror, completely terrified to speak up or intervene, knowing that defending the young prodigy would instantly destroy their own standing with the front office. As the heavy metal doors slammed shut behind Clark, leaving her stranded out in the hallway clutching her basketball sneakers, a darker reality was exposed to everyone inside. This was not a spontaneous outburst of anger or a simple coaching disagreement gone wrong in the heat of a competitive moment. This was a carefully calculated, pre-planned execution designed to humble the global icon, systematically strip away her authority, and forcibly remind her who truly owned the Indiana Fever. The psychological damage inflicted within those few terrifying minutes was irreparable, forever severing the trust between the player, her coaches, and the executives running the team. Clark was left standing completely alone in the cold, abandoned corridor, realizing that the very organization she had elevated to global fame was now actively working to tear her down. And just when you think this unthinkable betrayal couldn't possibly get any worse, a hidden recording device sitting on the sidelines caught every single word of the dark, secret conspiracy unfolding behind those closed doors. Within minutes of Clark's humiliating ejection, the audio file from that leaked phone recording began spreading through high-level executive group chats like wildfire, exposing a conspiracy far more sinister than anyone ever imagined. It was not just bitter locker room jealousy at play. The leaked conversation revealed a secret, high-level meeting between top Fever executives and influential league politicians held just days prior. On that recording, senior management voices were captured explicitly discussing plans to artificially suppress Clark's influence, limit her court authority, and intentionally engineer a locker room conflict to force a contract renegotiation. The executives were deeply terrified that Clark's rapidly growing global brand gave her unprecedented leverage over the entire franchise, threatening to strip away power from the traditional WNBA front office elite. By fabricating a narrative that Clark was unmanageable and alienating her veteran teammates, the organization aimed to publicly humble her, control her media narrative, and protect the old guard of the league. When Clark's inner management team caught wind of the leaked audio, an immediate, ferocious screaming match erupted in the administrative offices directly above the practice gym. Threats of massive multi-million-dollar lawsuits, Immediate contract terminations and catastrophic public exposes were hurled through the air as corporate suits panicked, desperately attempting to initiate a complete news blackout. Security personnel were instantly ordered to confiscate all player phones and sweep the entire facility for electronic devices, plunging the Indiana Fever organization into a state of martial law-style lockdown. In a frantic bid to stop the tape from leaking to national media outlets, high-ranking league officials secretly contacted Clark's camp with an outrageous ultimatum: remain silent about the practice incident, or face an official league suspension for conduct detrimental to the team. They were attempting to hold her entire basketball legacy hostage, leveraging her competitive passion against her to force a silent, compliant submission. Instead of backing down in fear, a deeply betrayed and utterly furious Caitlin Clark made a move that sent absolute shockwaves straight through the corporate headquarters of women's basketball. She flatly refused to sign the non-disclosure agreement, packed her personal belongings, and permanently walked away from the Indiana Fever training complex, vowing to never step foot in their arena again until every corrupt executive involved was permanently removed. The standoff was no longer just an internal coaching dispute. It had officially escalated into a nuclear corporate war threatening to dismantle the financial infrastructure of the entire WNBA. The golden child of the sport had officially gone rogue, leaving the league's top brass in a state of unmitigated, blind panic as the clock ticked down to the public explosion. And as news of Clark's sudden, dramatic departure began leaking past the facility's heavy security perimeters, the sports internet was about to unleash an unprecedented wave of global fury that no public relations firm could ever control. The instant the news broke through the security perimeter, social media completely exploded into an unprecedented storm of global rage and total corporate panic. Within minutes, hashtags demanding the immediate firing of the Fever coaching staff and management skyrocketed to the #1 trending spots worldwide, racking up millions of furious posts. Die-hard Indiana Fever fans, who had poured thousands of hard-earned dollars into season tickets and merchandise, immediately organized massive protests directly outside the corporate team headquarters. Crowds gathered in the streets holding protest signs, burning team jerseys, and screaming for complete justice for Caitlin Clark as the outrage paralyzed the entire city. Major national television networks completely dropped their scheduled programming to run emergency live broadcasts, with sports analysts passionately debating the dark, corrupt politics destroying women's basketball. Major corporate sponsors, who had signed multi-million-dollar endorsement deals specifically because of Clark's presence, began threatening to instantly pull their money from both the franchise and the league. Behind closed doors, the emotional fallout within the Indiana Fever locker room was turning into an absolute nightmare of guilt, fear, and complete psychological collapse. Rookies and veteran players who had stood by in silence during the practice ejection were now receiving overwhelming streams of public backlash and severe online hostility. Sensing the immense public pressure, several players broke down in tears during private team meetings, confessing that they felt completely manipulated and trapped by front office executives who used them as pawns. Aaliyah Boston, visibly distraught and facing massive heat from the global fanbase, publicly unfollowed key team accounts, signaling a massive, irreparable rift right down the center of the franchise. Meanwhile, Clark remained completely dark on all social media platforms, her eerie silence only amplifying the sheer terror gripping the highest levels of the WNBA administration. Leaked internal emails revealed that ticket sales for upcoming games were plummeting at a catastrophic rate, with fans demanding immediate, full refunds for any match where Clark was not guaranteed to play. The entire financial and cultural renaissance of the sport, which had taken years to build around Clark's legendary stardom, was crumbling to dust in less than 24 hours. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert was forced into an emergency midnight conference call with franchise owners, desperately trying to contain a wildfire that was rapidly destroying the league's credibility. The emotional damage inflicted on Clark was profound, as the young star found herself holed up in a private residence, isolated from the sport she had dedicated her entire life to mastering. The public was no longer just asking for an official explanation. They were actively calling for a complete executive purge and an independent federal investigation into player mistreatment. And just when the franchise thought they could somehow spin the story using carefully crafted corporate public relations statements, a second, highly confidential document leaked online, revealing the ultimate, horrifying truth behind the entire conspiracy. The catastrophic leak sent shockwaves through the highest corridors of sports power, revealing a systematic, pre-planned agenda designed to intentionally sabotage Caitlin Clark's rise. The uncovered documents detailed a hidden clause within league promotional contracts that stripped individual athletes of their personal branding rights if they were deemed uncooperative with executive mandates. It was a cold, calculated trap meant to lock Clark into total financial and operational compliance, stripping away her autonomy while exploiting her generational talent for corporate gain. When the truth surfaced, the entire landscape of professional basketball fractured into complete, chaotic anarchy, exposing the corrupt underbelly of the sport's ruling elite. In an act of defiance that will forever be etched into sports history, Clark did not just issue a statement. She completely flipped the chessboard on her captors. Standing alongside a coalition of supportive veteran players and legal heavyweights, Clark officially announced a multi-billion-dollar antitrust lawsuit against the league's top brass and the Indiana Fever front office. She publicly declared her total refusal to ever take the hardwood floor again under the current corrupt regime, effectively holding the entire WNBA's financial future hostage. The global audience was left in absolute, stunned shock as ticket prices plummeted to zero. National television networks threatened massive breach of contract lawsuits, and sponsors pulled out in droves. The entire multi-billion-dollar empire built around women's basketball was standing on the absolute precipice of complete and total financial collapse. As the franchise scrambled to assemble an emergency damage control press conference, a sudden, horrifying notification silenced every reporter's phone inside the media room. An anonymous whistleblower from within the league's inner sanctum had just uploaded a live, unedited video file directly to the internet. The footage showed a secret, late-night executive meeting where key officials were caught discussing an even darker contingency plan, one that involved actively targeting Clark's health and career longevity on the court. The room fell into an icy, suffocating silence as the gravity of the dark conspiracy settled over the entire sports world. The Golden Prodigy had been driven far past her breaking point, and the resulting explosion was threatening to burn the entire establishment down to ashes. With the legal war officially declared and the darkest secrets of the league laid bare, every single fan on Earth is asking one terrifying, lingering question. Is this the catastrophic end of Caitlin Clark's legendary basketball career, or the violent birth of a completely new era that will forever destroy the old guard? This is officially the single biggest, most terrifying story in modern sports history, and the truth is finally coming out. Now we need to hear from you down in the comments right now. Are you standing firmly with Caitlin Clark as she fights to burn down this corrupt system? Or do you believe the WNBA executives were justified in protecting their old guard? Every single comment you drop helps amplify this message and prevents the league from quietly sweeping this catastrophic scandal under the rug. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on all notification bells right now so you never miss a second of this explosive, breaking coverage. Share this video across every social media platform before corporate public relations teams force it off the internet forever. The battle for the soul of women's basketball has officially begun. Choose your side right now.